Most drone travel videos start with the legal rules. This one starts with a different question. Who actually controls the place where you want to launch? Because in the Philippines, that question may matter more than the rulebook. My short verdict is this. Bring a drone to the Philippines only if you already have planned flights before you leave. Not just a general idea. Not just, I'll take it in case something looks beautiful. Actual places. Actual launch points. Actual permission checks. Stay with me through the examples because the answer changes by destination. By the end, you should be able to look at your own itinerary and know whether you have real drone flights planned or just a nice idea sitting in your carry-on. And that difference matters, because the Philippines can look like one of the most drone-friendly countries in the world. It is very easy to imagine a drone making the trip better. But the real question is not whether the Philippines is beautiful enough to justify bringing one. Of course it is. The question is whether your actual trip gives you enough places where launching a drone makes sense, where it is allowed, where it is respectful, and where someone on the ground is not going to stop you. So let's start with the national layer. In the Philippines, drone operations are governed by the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, usually shortened to CAAP. For many casual travelers carrying a small recreational drone, the national rules can look manageable on paper. The common understanding from current drone law explainers is that recreational drones under 7 kilograms do not require the full CAAP registration and pilot certification pathway, as long as they are being used recreationally and not commercially. But there is one important caution here. Some sources create confusion around a lower threshold, especially around drones over 250 grams. So before you travel, check the current CAAP guidance directly. Do not rely only on an old blog post, an old forum comment, or a random travel video. That said, for a traveler carrying a DJI Mini-style or Mavic-style drone for personal travel footage, the bigger issue is usually not the paperwork you imagined. It is where you try to fly. The basic operating rules still matter. Stay below the altitude limit. Keep the drone within visual line of sight. Avoid airports and controlled airspace. Do not fly over crowds. Do not fly at night unless you have the right permission. Stay away from emergencies, public gatherings, military areas, and sensitive places. And if you are doing commercial work, paid work, client work, or formal production, that is a different category. For commercial use, the pathway is much heavier: registration, pilot certification, and operator approval. If your drone footage is part of a paid job, do not treat this as casual recreational flying. But for this video, I am focusing on the traveler question. You are going to the Philippines. You have a small drone. You want to know if it belongs in your bag. On paper, maybe yes, but paper is not where most travelers get stopped. This is where the Philippines becomes interesting, because the national rules are only the first layer. Think of the decision like a layer cake. Layer 1 is CAAP, National Aviation Rules, airports, altitude, controlled airspace, recreational versus commercial use. That layer matters. But then comes layer 2, local government units, municipalities, cities, provinces, places that may have their own rules, permits, or event restrictions. Then layer 3, resorts and private property. A resort can say no even if CAAP would not. A beach club can say no. A hotel manager can require written permission. A private property owner can stop the launch before it starts. Then layer 4, tour operators and boat captains. This is a big one in the Philippines. If you're on an island hopping tour, the person controlling the boat often controls what happens on that trip. If they say the drone cannot fly, the national rule does not help you much in that moment. And layer 5, protected areas, heritage sites, events, wildlife areas, UNESCO-type landscapes, memorial spaces, and historically sensitive locations. These are the places where the drone may be technically possible, but still inappropriate, restricted, or locally controlled. Most travel guides explain layer 1, but layers 3, 4, and 5 are where casual travelers actually get stopped. That is why the best question is not just, is my drone legal in the Philippines? It is, who controls the place where I want to launch? Let's run that through a few real destinations. Start with Boracay. Boracay is one of the clearest caution examples in the Philippines because it is exactly the kind of place where a traveler might assume drone footage would be easy. White beach, blue water, sunset, boats, resorts. It feels like the obvious place to bring a drone. But Boracay is also one of the places where casual recreational flying is not something you should assume. The research points toward a very high-friction environment, with recreational drone use at the beach level treated as not permitted, and commercial use requiring formal permission and significant fees. The important lesson is simple. The most photogenic destination is not always the easiest place to fly. In fact, sometimes the most famous place is the place with the most rules, the most private operators, the most crowds, the most security, and the least tolerance for someone launching a drone because the sunset looks good. So if Boracay is the center of your trip, I would not bring a drone expecting casual beach flights. Maybe a professional operator can work through the correct pathway. Maybe a resort has a controlled process for approved filming. But for a casual traveler, Boracay is not the place I would use to justify packing a drone. Now compare that with Palawan, El Nido, and Coron. This is where the answer gets more complicated. These areas may be some of the strongest reasons someone wants drone footage in the Philippines. Limestone cliffs, boats between islands, turquoise water, lagoons, remote beaches, dramatic coastlines. But the same things that make these places visually powerful also create friction. Some locations are protected, some are connected to environmental management, some are controlled by resorts, some are accessed through boat tours, some depend on local operators. Some may be close to areas where wildlife, crowds, or conservation rules matter. So the answer is not, never bring a drone to Palawan. The answer is, do not treat Palawan as one single permission zone. A public beach, a private resort, a protected lagoon, a boat tour stop, and a remote coastline are not the same thing. You might be able to fly in one place and get stopped in another on the same trip. And this is exactly why I'll just bring it and see what happens is not a great plan. If your trip is built around Palawan, El Nido, or Coron, the drone might be worth considering, but only if you identify the actual flight locations before you go. Not just the region, the specific beach, the specific bay, the specific resort, the specific tour, the specific launch point. Then you ask the people who control that place, not after you are already on the boat, before you book. Because once you are on a tour, the tour operator may be the only authority that matters in practice. And if the guide says no, you are done. Next, think about Cebu. Cebu shows another layer, timing. It is not only where you are, it is when you are there. During major events, festivals, religious gatherings, and public assemblies, drone enforcement can become much more active. The Sinulog festival is the obvious example. CAAP has publicly warned about drone restrictions and unauthorized drones around major public events. That is not theoretical. This is the kind of situation where a drone that might be fine on a quiet rural morning becomes a serious problem in a crowded city event. And the reason is obvious. Crowds, security, aviation safety, public order, emergency access, privacy, police visibility. A small drone is still an aircraft. Around a major public event, the tolerance changes. So if you are traveling during a festival, a procession, a public celebration, a political gathering, or anything with crowds, assume drone friction goes way up. Do not look only at your destinations. Check your dates. Cebu also shows the split between urban and rural friction. A city area near an airport, crowds, or events is very different from a quieter rural landscape in the south, away from people and controlled zones. This is why the Philippines does not fit a simple yes or no answer. One island can contain both, do not even try here, and this might be reasonable with preparation. Now let's talk about Bataan and Corregidor. This is where the question changes again. Because not every drone decision is only about aviation law, beaches, or resorts. Some places carry historical weight. Corregidor is the sharpest example. It is not just a scenic island in Manila Bay. It is a World War II fortress landscape, a memorial site, and a tour-controlled destination. Access is limited. Tour operators and site managers play a major role in what visitors can do there. A traveler report from 2024 described bringing a drone to Corregidor, then asking about flying during the tour, and being told it would cost several thousand pesos, without a clear explanation of what that charge actually represented. The traveler did not fly and came away with the obvious lesson: ask in writing before booking, not after arriving. That is the entire Philippines drone problem in one story. The drone may be small, the airspace question may look manageable, but each area is controlled by someone. And if that person or organization says no, the drone stays in the bag. Bataan has a similar caution, even if the research does not show one clean drone prohibition for the whole area. Bataan is not just another landscape, it is tied to World War II history, memorial spaces, military memory, and sensitive heritage. That does not automatically mean no drone everywhere, but it does mean you should not treat memorial landscapes, old fortifications, shrines, military-adjacent areas, or historical sites like casual scenic overlooks. This is where respect matters. Even if you could launch, should you? Who manages the site? Is it a memorial space? Are there ceremonies? Are there veterans groups, guards, site staff, tour operators, or local authorities who need to approve filming? Would a drone change the atmosphere for other visitors? These are not small questions, and they are exactly why the Philippines episode is not really about whether a drone can fly. It is about whether the location can absorb a drone without conflict. Nationally legal and locally permitted are two different things. Corregidor is the clearest example of that. So who should actually bring a drone to the Philippines? I would bring one only if I had 2 or 3 specific flight opportunities already identified before departure. Not vague hopes, specific locations. Ideally, these would be lower friction places, remote beaches, rural landscapes, quiet coastlines, open areas away from airports, crowds, resorts, festivals, wildlife, and protected sites. I would also want enough flexibility in the itinerary that if one location does not work, the drone still has another real use. That matters because a drone has a cost even before anything goes wrong. It takes up space. It adds batteries and chargers. It adds anxiety at customs. It adds decisions during the trip. It can distract from the experience if every beautiful place becomes a negotiation over whether you can fly. So for the Philippines, I would not bring a drone just because the country is beautiful. I would bring it because I know where it is likely to come out of the bag. On the other hand, I would leave it home if the trip is mostly fast island hopping, resort stays, crowded beach areas, guided tours, festivals, Boracay, memorial sites, or famous viewpoints where everyone wants the same shot. I would also leave it home if my plan is simply, I'll fly wherever it looks good. Because in the Philippines, wherever looks good may be the most expensive drone plan you can make. The places that look most obvious are often the places with the most gatekeepers. Beach managers, resort security, tour operators, park offices and local governments, event organizers or heritage site staff. The drone might be legal, the launch may still be blocked, so before you pack it, run a quick 5-part check. First, list your actual destinations, not just the Philippines, not even Palawan or Cebu. Write down the places where you realistically want to fly. The beach, the island, the resort, the tour stop, the viewpoint, the historical site. If you cannot name the locations, you do not yet have a drone plan. Second, check your airport and crowd risk. Many tourist areas in the Philippines are closer to airports than travelers realize, especially with domestic island airports. Add major events, festivals, processions, and crowded town centers, and your flight options can shrink quickly. Third, ask who controls the launch site. Is it a resort, a tour operator, a boat captain, a park office, a local government unit, a heritage site manager, a private property owner? Find the person or organization who can actually say yes or no. Fourth, get permission in writing where it matters. This is especially important for resorts, tours, Corregidor, Bataan-related historical sites, protected areas, and any location where access is controlled. A verbal maybe from someone who is not in charge is not the same as permission. And fifth, prepare the drone like a traveler, not a reseller. Bring it visibly used. Do not carry it sealed in the original retail box. Keep proof of ownership if you have it. Declare it when appropriate. Make it obvious this is personal travel gear, not a new commercial import. That checklist is not a guarantee. It is not legal clearance. It is just a simple way to find out whether the drone makes sense before it takes up space in your bag. Are you going to Boracay? Are you joining island hopping tours? Are you staying at resorts? Are you visiting Bataan or Corregidor? Are you traveling during a major event? Are your best drone ideas near airports, crowds, protected areas, or private property? That kind of planning matters more than packing the drone and hoping the answer becomes clear later. Because by the time you are standing on the beach, sitting on the boat, or walking through a historical site with a guide, the real decision may already have been made for you. So my final answer is this. Should you bring a drone to the Philippines? Yes, if your flights are planned. Yes, if your locations are specific. Yes, if you are prepared to ask permission before you arrive. Yes, if you are willing to leave the drone in the bag when the answer is unclear. But if your plan is to bring it because the Philippines looks beautiful and then figure it out location by location, I would think twice. The Philippines is worth the preparation. The aerial scenery is real. So is the layer cake. Travelers who plan a few real flight opportunities may come home with incredible footage. Travelers who wing it may come home with a drone that mostly rode around in their carry-on. One quick note before you go. If calmer travel tech breakdowns like this are useful, subscribe. It tells YouTube this kind of explanation is worth showing to other travelers. And of course, likes are always appreciated. They really do help the channel. Leave a comment if you have ever brought a drone to the Philippines, or if you decided not to. I would be interested to hear what made that decision easier or harder than you expected. Thanks for joining me. and safe travels, wherever you're headed.